Hello, welcome to the Ballcard Show, the sports podcast.
For the Sports Collector,
I'm Jason Otero.
I'm Gary LeMaster.
And this is Season 5, Episode 4, and it's a little different today.
We are
a bit different.
We are not coming to you from our normal studio setup. We are a little bit remote today, and that's because we had a special guest, and we're really excited to share with you. I'll let Jason introduce that, though.
Okay. We're going to jump in with a special guest, Alex from Clever Cuban Card. May or may not have heard that we talked trash about him on the episode last week. And I'll be honest, we did. I got in my feelings a little bit, and I know what I felt, and I stand by what I said. But you know what? So does Alex. He is asked to come on. He wants to duke it out, debate, give some perspective, hopefully helpful content, or at least entertaining for all of you. So go ahead and microwave that popcorn. That's coming up in a minute. Over an hour long. We got plenty of content for you. Before we jump into that interview, I want to talk about my favorite uncle and your favorite uncle. So here's what happened. You're going to get to see this for yourself. We hooked Uncle T up with one of his favorite cards with a catch. He has to give it away. So he didn't know that. We just told him we were sending him a gift. Here's what happened.
Gary and Jason from the Ballcard Show wanted me to give you something. Here you go.
My old Buckeye nephews, Gary and Jason. You know, they're good boys, and they buy their uncle damn presents because they know an uncle is important to them, bud. Yeah. Unlike yourself.
What is it? Show me.
Look at this here.
Oh, wow. That's an autographed Ric Flair.
Now, Dunk, stand back there, bud. I don't want you damn getting something on this.
There's a note that goes with it. Nice.
This is probably instructions on how to take care of that. Probably a damn note saying, Uncle Terry, bud, we love you. Want you to have a damn good time with your damn card. Those boys know I love my cards. Love my Ric Flair. Look at this. It says, Uncle T. Roses are red, violets are blue. When you give this away on Whatnot, let out a big woo.
You gotta give it away.
Love your nephews Gary and Jason at the Ballcard Show. Damn those damn
All right,
Buckeyes.
everybody, we're giving this away on our next Whatnot show. Autograph Ric Flair. Uncle Terry is not happy.
Great, have a good time with that.
Those damn Buckeyes. That's
He
right.
did not like that at all.
Uncle T, listen. Did we have fun with that? Sure. Yeah, we did, but it wasn't. It was for your people, for your audience, for Uncle Terry's vault, for the brand,
listen,
baby.
You get to hold it and own it for a week or so. Well, what's wrong with that?
Yeah. Payment failed on a giveaway. I see it coming out. Legit, Beck inserted Ric Flair auto. So be sure to head over to Uncle Terry's vault. Check out his socials there. His nephew, my cousin Duncan. That profile, you'll see a bunch of stuff up there for that. But jump in next Thursday. You might have a chance to win that. How funny it'd be if one of you won it, send it back to us as a giveaway, and we nana nana boo boo that right in his face.
That would be great.
I don't think that'll happen. Love you, Uncle T. Sorry to bring you pain and joy in the same minute, but it happened. Okay. Let's do this discussion. Gary and I went a little hard in the paint talking about the PSA offers, buybacks, repack, positioning, blah, 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 blah. Alex had opinions, and we pushed back. He's with us today. Let's jump into this interview. Enjoy the content. Thank you. Ballcard Show family, it's time to welcome a guest. A very famous guest in the community, one that we have spent a lot of time talking about in the last week. And I so appreciate that we have Alex from Clever Cuban Cards with us today. Alex, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to have a conversation here today.
So, Gary and I are a little bit for getting in the feels. If we have a take or an opinion, we're also known for being conspiracy theorists, so much so that we even began a little bit a few weeks back where we wear tinfoil hats and then just go hard in the paint because we feel like it clearly is satire if you're wearing a goofy hat, right? So, but this week, there was a take you had in a conversation on Sports Cards Nonsense where you were talking about the PSA offers and how they're become involved in repacks. the impact that it has, what you're hearing from dealers. And we were kind of like, yeah, wait a minute. We got to that dealer piece where there was a sentiment of like, if you can't cook, get out the kitchen. So you got us. Great hook, good content, got us thinking, got us feeling some things. And we shared a pretty strong opinion for a few minutes. What I'd like to do, Alex, feel free to push back here. I want to give you a few minutes, let it rip, and then let a thoughtful conversation and dialogue. One rule. I believe this. You and I can have completely different opinions. Gary can think we're both idiots at the end of this.
Hopefully he does.
Be okay. we just hope that it's a productive conversation. That's the goal for it. So let's hear your take on PSA offers. Feel free to push on something we said. Call us out on something we said wrong. Let's debate.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I will also admit it's in spaces where I'm wrong, which I'll get to, because I'm happy to do that. I'm not somebody who is going to just dig my feet in and say, nope, I'm going to plug my ears and I'm right and you're wrong. First thing that I want to say, I had not heard you guys' takes or anything. I know you said that it sounded like I was kind of talking to you directly. It sounds like we are kind of on the same wavelengths, but I was not directly mentioning anything that you had talked about. Want to start off, I actually really like that you talked about one of the things that I said is in regards to that, the Michael Jordan, you can make $7,800 off this card, and PSA is not going to risk their reputation for $7,800. And you guys said, I agree. They're not going to risk it over $7,800, but you multiply that times, 100, and you just made a lot of money, which is very, very true. First thing, I agree. PSA's reputation is not always huge. It's not always amazing, but what they do have reputation-wise is everybody sends them their cards because they know, as you said, the only thing that they have going for them really well is the market value. If they were to get caught on a large scale, which would be required to kind of take that $7,800 profit and scale that up 100,000 plus times, fraud at scale is a lot harder than fraud at a small level. It's one thing to say, okay, my single individual card, maybe they played that game. But the amount of people that would have to be involved to do this at scale significantly and substantially makes that really hard. And while I agree with you, there's not a ton reputationally that they have. I don't think that people say, oh, PSA by far has the most accurate grades. PSA is, the most trustworthy company, etc. If they were to get caught changing grades on cards, especially in the modern world where so many things are numbered, or it's really easy to see, there's a printing defect in a certain little spot that you can catch, like, wait a minute, that was my card. If they were to get caught intentionally grading cards lower than they should be and then regrading those cards higher, do you think anybody would ever trust them again? I don't think so.
Well, I think
Hold on, Gary. Hold on, Gary.
All right.
This ain't the Ballcard Show entirely. Alex gets his. So, Alex, do you tackle these point by point, or would you
Let's
like
do
to
a
just
point
go
by
through?
point. I'm ready for it.
Okay. Go get him, Gary.
Well, so my thing is this. I don't think, and I hope that I didn't intimate that I think that PSA is intentionally undergrading cards so that they can then properly grade cards.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case at all. I do think that PSA, on a relatively regular basis, I hope we can all agree with this, misgrades cards. And I don't think it's necessarily intentional. I think it's the end result of a subjective process.
Yep.
When you see cards get a 6 and then they get sent back in and they get a 10. So I don't think that is an intentional thing that's happening. I do think that there may be intentionality either on PSA's part or more likely their repack partners that they're kind of in bed with, intentionally buying up cards that have a very high probability of having been misgraded so that they can then maybe benefit from that. And I think that's reflected in the fact, like you said, most of the offers that you see in the PSA app are not PSA buying the card. It's their repack partners putting an offer in on the card. Why else would a repack partner be putting in 200% offers? Why else would they be putting in 165, 170% offers? That only makes sense, literally only makes sense if they have an opportunity to do that. And it's interesting that one of, if not the biggest repack buyer making offers on PSA's website is their most prominent repack partner, GameStop, who happens to be a group submitter.
Mm-hmm. And I think
from
that's fair.
Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead.
I think that's fair about the grading. You know, one of the things actually that I'm going to talk about in my podcast this week is that one of my hot takes is that the hobby doesn't want accurate grading. The hobby wants 10s.
Oh.
And like if we wanted accurate grading, we would support companies that used AI and it was not a subjective process. I absolutely agree with you. I get PSA'd more than I would like to admit. But I think that, and this is something that what I would love to see is more transparency on their process, because what I think, and I might be wrong here, what I think happens is these repack partners are buying the cards and PSA then is putting those directly into those PSA certified repacks. I don't believe, and again, I might be wrong here because we don't have enough transparency, which PSA is not good at anyways. The fact that they put grader notes behind such a massive paywall that you have to pay so much money to get the reason why your card got the grade that it did shows that they are not for that transparency. And the lack of that transparency, I think we should see more of it. But my understanding of the process is these repack partners are basically buying these cards and then PSA is directly putting them into repacks on site from the PSA vault. So could they regrade stuff? Maybe. But I think that the conspiracy was that PSA was intentionally grading this stuff low so that then the, repack partner, or they could regrade it higher. And now all of a sudden my card that was a 9 is now a 10.
Yeah,
I know this sounds a little. Let me jump in here, Gary. I know you and I are going to have to fight to get words in edgewise with each other. But I want to talk about this thought of fraud at scale, because the issue that we have, in my opinion, the reason I think you're getting a stronger reaction than maybe just the point we're talking about, Alex, is because it wasn't that long ago. My whole point to the C thing, or SGC, is it wasn't that long ago. All of us believed that it was still a tremendously undervalued piece of this grading equation. And to this day, I'm hoping and praying that SGC, evolves into some type of boutique something.
Dead.
But what
It's
we
dead.
called it
I
a
agree.
parts car. It's a parts car. PSA has taken it for all the parts they need because it was less expensive than expanding it, their operation were. No regulation, there's nothing in place, people were allowed to buy. This is free market. However, if this level of fraud was possible, or we're in an incubator where it's easier for it to happen, and there are no more regulations on this, that's really concerning to me.
Yep.
Because possible and unbelievable has certainly happened more than once or twice in the last 3 years. And I think it's that perspective that gives me a hard time. When I look at what they were offering 100% on, here's the piece that we didn't spend too much time in the pod, but what they were offering are well over 100% was exactly what was off. That's not strange, right? We had this GOAT, especially the GOAT basketball stuff through the summer. I don't know if you capitalized on any of that stuff, but it was screaming hot as the ultra-modern rookie class for football was kicking off, and it just wasn't producing as much in the way of sales for that low to mid-end, right? But these 7 and 8s on Jordan inserts were getting 250% offers. That seems strong to quite strong. When Gary and I sell 30 to 40% of our business are people that are repackers that hit local show scenes, and boy, they sure aren't throwing 200% at that. So it makes you scratch your head. Is this okay? Should there be regulations? Should we be a little bit more concerned about what's happening here, or is this just nothing to see? And that's where it's just tough to look at history and say, man, it tends to repeat itself, and we have this entity that only has even more influence. I know Gary has a point about that in a little bit. I don't want to talk over you, Alex. I want to give you floor and space there.
Yeah, well, and it's that though is something that for me, I will admit that maybe I have blind spots on. That, to my point that I said, they're not making offers on high value cards. Clearly, you guys gave many examples of cards that you have seen. Maybe I'm just not seeing the right cards, because for me, most of my business is, as you guys know, lower end cards. So maybe the high end cards that I have and the few, I went through and I counted. In my entire inventory and house collection, etc., I have a total of 10 cards right now that are worth over $1,000. That's it.
Yeah.
I am not a high-end collector. I am not a high-end dealer. So I will be the first to admit there's blind spots there. I don't do anything with basketball. So no, I know that Jordan and Kobe and LeBron are hot, but I'm, no awareness of any of that. So I'll be the first to admit that I was, wrong there. And I think that where I'd like to jump on that kind of is the like broader concerns around PSA and the holistic market, because I think that where two things got conflated is my defense of the PSA offers and being therefore holistically in support of the PSA monopoly that is forming. And I think that those two things are not the same. I think that you guys said that, you're just don't dismiss legitimate concerns that massive corporations are trying to profit off of every single stage of a card's life to the detriment of everyone else. Like, I'm not saying that you can't disagree with PSA or have questions or concerns about it. My thing was strictly on PSA offers because I have lots of concerns about PSA. I have lots of things, to the SGC side. I have been very vocal that one, from a business perspective, I think it's a really bad decision. Two, I think from a hobby perspective, it's really bad. Last week on my podcast, we talked about how it's the unfortunate reality that SGC is not really market relevant at all anymore. And if you're somebody who's trying to use the hobby to fund the hobby, it's PSA or bust right now, and that we need more than one grading option for the hobby to be healthy. It is bad when there is only one option. I was very critical of PSA jacking up their prices and turnaround times, saying, oh, we've got unprecedented demand, and in order to do, like, we have to raise these because, it's how they're going to slow that funnel. They're not going to lower those prices once the funnel slows. That price is jacked up forever, and there's nothing we can do about it. So I have lots of concerns, but I think that the concept or idea that these PSA offers or what PSA is doing on the PSA offers is a detriment to everyone, that's where I feel like we disagree on. I think it could be a problem in the long term, and that's something that we can talk about of the like defending, and maybe I'm just a optimist in where we are right now. I don't think is a massive problem. Again, I think we need more competition in the space, and the market needs to put their money where their mouth is, because I think most people would say we need more competition, but people don't go buy anything outside of PSA slabs. But I think that the average collector, the average person going to a show, I think PSA offers are good for. Somebody who wants liquidity in the big card that they pulled that they don't necessarily want to keep or they want to sell it, making it more accessible for gaining liquidity on your cards at 0% fees, etc. in the here and now state is good. If they change it, if they just use it as a bait and switch and say, hey, we're going to corner the market, we're going to box out all of the dealers and make them fail, and then we're going to start lowering our offers, then yeah, that's a problem. And that future, we need to be very critical if that were to happen.
I think go ahead, Jason.
Sorry, Gary, I'm going to interrupt you, and then it'll be short. I promise.
Okay.
Big difference between your and my opinion here, Alex, is the definition of long term.
Okay.
And the reason I'm saying that is this is becoming as an alternative asset class. More money is moving in. Volatility is at a level. I mean, we saw some COVID volatility that was cuckoo, right?
Yes.
But this stuff doesn't happen in 10 years. It happens in 10 months. 3 months ago, we were doing a podcast where we said, hey, PSA's offered this thing where you can jump the line, pay up, if and only if you agree to do this, X, Y, and Z. This really sounds like they're starting to position for a repack. And I swear, Alex, everybody was like, guys, chill out. It's PSA. Could they do it? Are they going to do a repack? No. And so we fast forward just a couple months. Clearly, we're doing this. Now, does it make more sense on the business end for them probably to be just sourcing that? Hey, what does PSA have that is probably more valuable than anything? The mailing list of a bajillion people that are actively spending money in the hobby. That's big piece of the value. So they're leveraging that. I understand it. But the future gets here real quick. I turned 40 this year. This last 10 years was real fast. And the things that we see in positioning concern me. I don't want us to be in the hobby saying, and this is not a reflection on you, but I came up with an analogy of like, those little drive-through spots where you can grab, you don't even get out of your car. You can grab a bag of chips, a 6-pack of beer or whatever. It's like, hey, here's an ice cold cup of ice for the road to go along with the booze on the way out. We're telling you not to drink. We're not doing it, but the situation is there. It's an opportunity. Everyone's responsible for their own decisions. I'm concerned that the future is happening right in front of us. I mean, huge leaps in 1 year. Huge leaps. Sorry, went about a minute longer than I thought.
Yeah, I was saying, you said that was going to be quick.
That is quick for me.
To your point, Alex, on the liquidity. So I have a couple of concerns that I think are very, very valid based upon what we know about how PSA already does business. First and foremost, and it's a lot like, and we've had this take across the industry, so much of what the average person who participates in this hobby, not guys like us, not guys like you, not guys that are doing this for a living, not guys who are creating content, but the average person who just goes to a show or two a month, maybe goes to their LCS and buys a box here or there or a single here or there. What they are shown on the surface becomes the lens that they view everything through. So when they see the big influencers going to a show with their camera and setting up these deals at 95% that you and I both know, maybe half of them are actual deals.
Yep.
When PSA has that offer showing, how many people who see that offer actually click and look at the fine print on that? It's a really low number. People think, and I know this to be true because people have told me that this is their perception of it, that if PSA says, I'm going to give you $200 for this card, that all they have to do is click that button and PSA sends them $200 and they send them the card. What it really is they have to send that card, and then it's going to take 2 to 3 weeks to get through the vaulting process. It used to be 2 or 3 days. And then if that offer is still in place at that same level, they will get paid that. If it's not, well, now you don't have a card that's sitting in PSA's vault, and if you want it back, you got to pay to get it back.
I just did that for the record. No, don't mean to interrupt you, but I literally just sent in, I think it was 5 cards. I'm working on a video kind of about that at the Nashville show. Did some of the, let's scan a card and see whether or not we can get it for less than the PSA offer. And one of the cards, which I don't mind that I'm holding, that they no longer have an offer on, was an Otani, gold wave refractor.
Not a bad one to hold.
Was, I think, $650 at the time when I bought it, and I got it for $450. So I was like, cool.
Yeah.
They pulled the offer. I don't care because I think it's worth more than that. But the other one, I sent it in and the offer stayed the same. There was, though, a card that I sent in and the offer changed. It was an Aaron Judge PSA 10 rookie. Ironically, I graded it with PSA. They didn't give me an offer. I got it back. There was an offer at, I think, like $210. It's a $240 card. I sent it in, and now the offer's $160. And I'm like, I'm not taking that. Like, that one, now I'm in that situation. The other ones, the offers were still good. So, like, 4 of the 5, it did take 2 weeks to process. You're spot on there.
Yep.
So, agree, concerns, totally see it. I've experienced it. I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, and so if PSA, what we always ask in any of these situations is, what are the reasons a company could be doing this and who benefits from it? Mm-hmm. And if you answer those 2 questions, you can usually come up with a pretty logical end game for what's happening. It feels like what PSA is trying to do is drive a preponderance of physical inventory into their vault. Mm-hmm. And what happens. Now, what are the potential reasons that they want to do that? The less physical inventory that's out there, the more likely that people are going to take their offers regardless of what they are. Because if I send a card in, like your example, my offer was $200. By the time they get it checked in, it's $150. I don't want the $150, but it's going to cost me $25 to get the card back, and it's going to take 2 to 4 weeks to get the card back. Well, now do I just leave it there, or do I just go ahead and take their offer? And if I just leave it there, or
sell it through PSA via their consignment services.
Well, right. So the point being that goes back to what I've said is it feels like PSA's entire goal right now is how do we get some piece of the pie at every single stage of this card's life cycle. And in doing that, while yes, you're increasing liquidity a small amount within the overall hobby, what you're actually doing is pulling money out of the hobby as a whole. Because even if it's 1% at every stage of the life cycle of a card, you've just pulled 5% of the overall liquidity of that card out of the market and put it in your pocket. You see what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah, I see it, and I understand of, like, let's be honest. We know PSA, Fanatics, etc. The two big dogs that control basically everything right now, or will in the very, very near future. They are here to make money in the same way that when you guys go to a show or when I set up my Whatnot show, I'm here to make money. Now, I think that we probably are able to balance that maybe a little bit bigger than a large corporation is, having worked in corporate America before, but I recognize that they're trying to make that profit. And I think that where it's the question and problem is if that future comes quickly and if that future, that the feared future becomes a reality. And maybe that's where we're not seeing eye to eye, because I think that I hope and maintain that hopefully they keep the offers reasonable, strong, good, etc. in the same way, because basically all of these repacks, whether it's PSA, whether it's, Arena Club, Courtyard, collectibles, whatever, they're all doing the 90% buyback. It is gambling. It is basically people, I'm going to accept the 90% buyback offer, and, that person just spent $1,000 and got back $700. Boom. We just made $300 right there. And that's why they're able to pay so strongly. And it's the same way with repackers being able to buy at 95, 100% comp, because they know that they're going to be able to play that game, buy that inventory back from people, etc. And I just hope, and again, maybe me being an optimist is incorrect here, and I hope that I'm right, but I recognize there's a world in which I'm wrong, and that's where the fear comes from, is if they start to lower these things and if they start to monopolize this even more, that 5% now becomes 10% or 15%, and it can snowball, and I will concede that is possible.
Yeah, it's when you look at what that snowball looks like, I think that's where people like Jason and I really get nervous, because I think we all can recognize that the entire ecosystem of this hobby is reliant on every part of it. Mm-hmm. If you don't have grading companies, then there's not really a way to really move card values. That's just reality. And if you don't have a lot of people, you've made the comment that, dealers freaked out when repackers came onto the scene. Didn't bother us too much because we don't tend to source by walking shows. We source from our side of the table when people walk up to the table. But at the end of the day, we all rely on each other. If PSA maintains 90% buyback offers,
Yep.
and they start monopolizing more and more of that flow, local shows where you source, where a lot of Whatnot people source, where people like us make our living, they will cease to exist, because you can't make a living. You can't run a small business. You can run Amazon, you can run IBM, you can run PSA, although they're nowhere near this. You can't exist on 5% margins.
Well, let me jump in here, Gary. I understand what you're saying can't exist. You will be forced to do the same thing, Alex. If our conspiracy came to light in the next couple of years, the only way you're going to be able to do that, if your focus is margin when you're sourcing, is to buy bigger cards. And this on Whatnot, there's a fine line, there's a dance. You can outprice your community on your inventory and create a very different experience where you get a drive-by purchase, but you don't have somebody hanging out in your show for 2 hours, building relationships, building a stack. So that's a piece of this. Do I think shows cease to exist? I would push back on Gary on that. I don't think they cease to exist, but I do think one thing that's become very evident to Gary and I, now for perspective, we're set up 40 to 45 weekends a year. We're old school road warrior, we're out there, we're just putting it out. There are communities now or areas we know where we're going to go, and there are card collectors that are going to be buying, and there is a huge bifurcation where we see the other half of these shows where it's like after the first 4-hour wave of repackers that all came in early, we'll see what's happening there. So I think have a negative impact on the show scene. Gary and I would have to make some adjustments, but I do think it would also affect that low-end market tremendously. Now, are these offers on $50 and $100 cards going to continue? What are they going to want to buy? Like, those are all concerns.
Yeah, I'm going to say I actually think that the concerns regarding local shows to some extent at least in my experience as somebody who walks shows and doesn't really set up as much, I think it's already happening.
What are you seeing? Get specific with us, because I'd really like your perspective here.
I cannot source solid slab inventory at all at shows anymore. You know, I went to the Nashville Card Show a few weeks ago. Honestly, it was probably a month plus ago at this point. I spent, you know, for me, $12,000 in the weekend, which is a lot of money for me and my business. And I didn't even fill up a single two-row shoebox of slabs. Like, my business, like, I think I actively am hurt by the added liquidity that slabs have in the market between repackers and PSA right now. It is harder than ever to keep up with slab inventory. And I think that that's one of the things that, like, you talked about those, like the importance of the relationships with the dealers and the importance of the local card shows, etc. I can't emphasize that enough, how important those are.
Yeah.
But those local shows are much more important to me from a buying raw inventory versus buying slab inventory nowadays. My slabs, I would say that probably 10% of the slab inventory that I have comes from shows.
Okay.
That's it. And I sell 40 to 50 slabs a week right now.
Do you run a cost average for inventory? Do you break out by sale or purchase?
I just run average. So basically, I know it's impossible from a business perspective with whatnot, the volume that I operate at to track, especially because so much of the stuff that I'm selling is, you know, a $3-4 card. I'm not going to track that. So I just know that at the end of the day, my average stream generally, it's insane how consistent it is. As long as, to your point, know your customer, know the price point that you want to work with. It's insane how consistent, $12 to $15, and that's inclusive of the $200 Bobby Witt slab that I sell and the $2 Bobby Witt, you know, just refractor card. So I know when I'm sourcing inventory, if I get to the end of a show and I'm like, wow, I spent more than $12 a card, got a problem probably. But if it's, you know, had a show this past weekend, I was like, I got a lot of good stuff at $7 a card. Cool. I'm excited there. I think I'm going to make good money on that. But I already have seen that concern, I think. And I think that I see it both on me trying to buy it from, you know, to me, there's two classes of people that generally set up at a show. You've got the professional dealers like you guys that go every single weekend, and that road warriors are just doing show after show after show. And then you've got the local hobbyist collector side, you know, hustle guy, etc. Both of those dealers, it is a dream if I can get stuff at 85% from a showcase slab inventory perspective nowadays. I used to get that stuff at 75 to 80%, and so and this is what I think, and I think this is where my take of obviously if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. It was meant to be a, like, you either in business you need to adapt or you're gonna die, and that goes. I think we've seen that throughout the history of the hobby, that things are constantly changing and it forces you to adapt. Right now, I'm being actively hurt by it. I recognize it, but I'm having to adapt the way that I run my business in order to do that. And granted, what that's forcing me to do, and this is right in the PSA playbook, is I'm having to grade more cards with PSA.
Yeah, have to send your own stuff off. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to grade it myself, because then I'm getting it at a better cost basis. I can say, basically in my mind, I say, okay, cool, I'm getting these cards at $22 a slab. I'm not going to do that at a card show. For good inventory, no way.
For perspective, it sounds like you're saying the negative impacts of PSA being involved like this are a reality already for you.
I think they are, yeah. But I also think, and this is where my point is, I think that to the average person who has PSA cards that isn't set up at shows every weekend and isn't doing this and that, it is giving them more negotiation power at shows. Or when they're looking to sell to me on Discord or Facebook groups or Instagram. And I think the person who has the slab right now has more power, unless it's a whatnot stream where I'm starting it at $1 and you get cooked here and there, and whatever. That's what happens. Like,
all right.
Yeah, I think
we've been wrestling this to the ground. It sounds like a big perspective is a belief that this could happen and I've got an eye on it versus a belief that it is currently happening and it's a more immediate threat.
Yep.
Is that a well surmised there? All right, Gary,
Yeah, and I
sorry.
think that goes for PSA and Fanatics. You talk about people saying, because Fanatics is obviously the other major player, and I know you guys mentioned them, of like the consolidation of power within the industry right now. This might be a hot take, and people will, say that I've sold out and this and that. I think generally right now, Fanatics has been very good for the hobby. I think generally, and there are things that I can and will complain about, they have been horrible at putting out checklists and pack odds. Topps used to be amazing at putting those out before the releases, before pre-orders, etc. That is gone. I will critique them for that. I will critique where I think it is due and fair. But I think largely, Topps Chrome Basketball pre-order happens in 24 minutes here. That space, that is Topps' Prism. That hobby box is going to be, I'm going to guess $250. Prism, that'd be a $1,000 box.
It's going to be $250 for pre-order.
And then the
if you're
market will
sitting
jump it up to
in front of
$400 or
your
$500.
computer at noon on a weekday and you have a bot running. Otherwise, you're not touching that at $250.
I have I bought 10 boxes of Cosmic last week, all with these little fingers. I didn't use nothing. Just speed and knowing how to, and like, I know how to do it. I buy a lot from them. But like, I agree, the bots, and I think the Topps is trying to do some stuff in terms of you see the whole like checkout line, and it's a constant push and pull between the company selling stuff and the bots.
I
But
can
I think
tell you
largely
from
Fanatics has been better than Panini.
I think that in some ways I would agree with you.
Yep.
In others I would not. And here's why I say that. Panini, especially over the last 4.5 years, was at least honest about their greed, and they were really blatant about it. Like, we know the secondary market's going to be $1,000, so we want 9. Have yourself a day.
Yeah.
Here's rookie royalty.
Yeah, I don't like I don't like anything where a company is trying to present itself as being one thing when we all know that's not reality. Because let's be frank, they're going to release Topps Chrome on pre-order.
Yep.
Do we really think that they're going to sell all the inventory they have available on this pre-order?
No, I know that how they do it is that breakers and shops, they get the solicitation email after the pre-order because Fanatics says, hey, let's see how quickly this sells out, and that helps inform them where they need to put the price at for wholesale.
You know what some of the big
Go ahead,
breakers
Gary.
also get ahead of time, Alex?
No.
They get about 5 minutes early access to that pre-order.
Yep. Oh,
And I know that to be true. Go-
It is the breakers, love them or hate them. There's two very polarizing perspectives. I am not a breaker. I never, have, will, etc. For Fanatics, breaking is massively popular. They want to get the product into their hands.
Sure.
So I understand it from a business perspective. From a marketing perspective, everybody talks about juice boxes. I'm a firm believer there are no juice boxes. It is a pure numbers game.
Well,
might be
I
wrong.
think there are juice boxes, but I don't necessarily think Fanatics or whoever knows
Is
exactly
intentionally
where they're
sending
going.
it to backyard breaks so that they pull, the Skeens one of one.
No, I agree with that, but I do think it's interesting that I didn't see any publication, and this wasn't a Fanatics thing, this was a Panini thing.
Yeah.
But to that point about juice boxes and manufacturers, last year when all the first off the line boxes had 20 plus downtowns and multiple Pandoras, I didn't see any of those first off the line boxes that went to just the average person that bought something on the first off the line. It was all the breakers that got those boxes. There wasn't any just random dude in Iowa who went, check out my first off the line box with 12 downtowns in it.
I feel like I saw one post maybe in Sports Cards Nonsense Facebook group, but I think that's also that goes to the whole, all breakers pull all the big hits. I think to some extent
It's a volume game.
and not just a volume game, but also if, little Johnny in Iowa, his dad buys him a first off the line box. If little Johnny makes an Instagram post, what traction is that going to get?
I don't know if it was a Fanatics, Topps would steal that content, repost it with no credit, and have themselves
That
a
is
K.
true.
I know that we can like spin in circles on the loaded boxes. I mean, some of the stuff is, you think it's happening or it's
Yeah.
not. One thing that's very clear, I think Gary would agree with me too on this, maybe not, but Fanatics has changed the experience for collectors.
Yes.
Collectors are closer to the athlete experience to hits than they've ever been before. They're clearly evangelizing the hobby. I have confidence that the brand and product will have a wider and larger reach than it has right now. 5 years from now, you fast forward, it's going to be unbelievable how many more consumers exist. As a dealer, I couldn't be happier about this, but you want to know what nobody's talking about because they'll literally get in trouble for it? We're not talking about the LCS owners that for 30 years have had direct accounts. They've been buying distributors, and little by little, Fanatics is squeezing and squeezing and squeezing and squeezing on the ones who put 20 years into building these businesses. They've got account managers saying, oh, Topps Chrome Basketball, we're going to make it affordable, but you only get 2 cases even though you've ordered a pallet for the last 20 years. You're going to get 2 cases of it, and you're going to like it. But don't worry, in 30 days, we'll let that back where you have a $30 markup because now we can advertise this direct to consumers. They're advertising, I know in the Ohio area, they're planning on down 60 accounts, and they said mid-summer that they weren't going to allow any more. So there's a squeeze going this way. Meanwhile, the LCS is making any money in our area. The account managers breathing down their neck saying, you better be ordering more, because your competitors,
Sweatshirts,
we
t-shirts.
love giving them, hey, you've 1,200 square feet. Let's use this whole wall for some $50 homage sweatshirts, which, by the way, are on clearance right now on Fanatics if you'd like to hop on and grab them. Still left over from Fanatics. So when we look at that big picture, yes, Fanatics, this and that. It's the same thing with PSA. There are net positives everywhere if you look at them. But if we don't talk about this, there's one I can't mention by name. But we have a dealer that's been doing this for longer than anybody else. And if I even could paint a picture of how much product they move with different brands and all that, really big staple in the state of Ohio. And they've been doing this longer. They got socks older than me, okay? And I'm telling you, they're getting calls because their hours weren't long enough. They needed to expand them by 3 hours.
A week. You're only open 42 hours a week. We noticed that. You need to be 45, otherwise we're going to cut your allocations.
So I think all the emotion in it is that dealers are spending time with the shop owners and the guys on and the guys that aren't doing most of this digitally. And everything we're hearing and feeling is these walls sure feel like they're closing in. Does anybody else see this? Anybody else? And so if it's met with feels a little dismissive, it's like, should we not? Should we be concerned? Should we say something? Should we not? Like Gary and I want to monetize content at some point, but we know having opinions, there's only a couple companies, right? Not crazy about what PSA does a lot of times. We love Card Ladder. Well, guess what? say, right? So go ahead, Alex.
I hear, and I think the concerns are valid there on the, you need to be open 45 hours a week. And, here is, if you want this product, then you're going to have to buy these things, etc. I also think that, to me, loops back to the adapting as things are shifting and changing. I don't think it's unreasonable to say, hey, you need to have enough hours that you're open for the public to come and buy cards to experience a hobby shop. I know one of the big things that people have had complaints about is that the hobby shop that you and I grew up on, which was the dusty, grungy, like 4-row boxes piled to the ceiling shops that I think a lot of people have fond memories of. Let's be honest. If you're a mom who's, 7-year-old kid is saying, hey, I want to go buy a pack of cards, and you walk into that shop, what are you going to think?
Sure.
I understand the concerns, and I understand we need to modernize this, and we need to do this in a way that is going to actually grow and make things like welcoming to people. So I understand and I hear both sides, and I think both are valid. I think Fanatics is valid for setting standards. I think that that's a fair thing to say. If you're, if you're going to sell our product and you're going to be an ambassador for our brand, in the same way that when people come to me and say, hey, you want to Like, you're going to be a brand ambassador, you're going to make branded content for us. I need to be brand friendly. It's a reality. But it's also fair for them to for me, if I, have a complaint about a company or this or that if I should be able to also express my opinions, and that's also fair and valid, and what we need, and that's where the conversation that we're having right now needs to be more open and more welcome. Is I think a lot of people, no matter what you're talking about in today's world, just love to dig their heels in and say, nope, this is my opinion, I'm going to plug my ears, and I'm not willing to hear anybody else.
Sure. And I think that Fanatics feels like, to this conversation, that they want their cake, but they want to eat it too.
Yep.
They want all these LCSs to operate as if they are franchises of Fanatics, but they don't extend any of the benefits of being a franchise.
That's a good point.
They basically are charging you franchise fees without charging you franchise fees, because they're forcing you to buy things you can't sell. And so they're getting their little percentage there. They're 6 to 8% there. The LCSs around our area that are forced to buy that stuff do it as giveaways. Like, just here, take it. So they're doing that, but they're not extending any of the benefits that go along with being a franchise, as far as the overall marketing and things like that. And again, to me, those are very short-sighted things. We talk about long-term versus short-term. And some of the things that a company like Fanatics has done are, in my mind, very much long-term thinking. But so many of the other things, it feels like a lot like what we've talked about with BGS over the last 2.5 to 3 years, where it's just a constant stream of shooting yourself in the foot for short-term gain without any thought to what the long-term thing is. Like, let's cut direct accounts. We talk about adaptability. One of the more successful local shops in our area just decided, you know what, screw it. I'm not going to even try to do direct. I'm going to buy my stuff off of DealerNet. I'm not going to carry a ton of wax. I'm going to be a single shop. And that's worked really well for him. What happens to somebody like Fanatics if more and more people are forced to go down that path? Because most small shops don't have $250,000 on a rolling 45 to 60 day window to spend on wax and accoutrement. You like that, Jason? I slid that word in. I know you hate it.
I hate that he tries to squeeze accoutrement in every chance he gets. Every chance he gets. But Gary, I'm going to push back on you a little bit on this one, because they're not worried about that. They have no concern with moving to wax.
Be.
Dick's Sporting Goods down the street, one of the new House of Sport. They just put one in up here in North Columbus, one of the big new whatevers. I could not believe which hobby product was there on the shelf. So they're going to excel in getting this direct to consumer. GameStop, I mean, that could be a whole nother conversation as well.
It's going to be their franchise eventually.
That is going to be their franchise. It's super smart for them. They've got a spot within 30 to 45 minutes of just about everybody. Walk in with your cards. It's brilliant. They're going to make a killing off of that. But they're not going to have a problem selling direct to consumer. They're even heading that direction. They're going to close down these accounts, but there's not a single card in this United States that is not going to get a yes, right? They will decide, there's too many shops here, so which one of these accounts is going to get cut? And those Tom Brady card vaults, I think it's a brilliant idea, but let's call it what it is. It's a boutique. There's some unique wax. There's not going to be a ton of inventory, but it's going to be a sharp building, and it's going to be an zero entry into the card space in a retail.
It's a corporate card shop.
Yeah, but it's gonna look nice.
We've got one of those here.
It won't be nice. It's going to be super nice. But it's the corporatization of the hobby.
Yeah. To the detriment of the people that have been there. Like, one that I'm talking about, we're not talking about that example I gave. This is somebody that's got one of the biggest upper deck accounts in the country. And you know how hard they are on their allocations. They have strict expectations with that. They still don't do direct accounts for breakers unless that changed in the last few months. You have to have a brick and mortar, I believe. So, I think we can make a pivot here, but I want to give you an uninterrupted minute here. If there's something that we misunderstood or something else that you want to bring this home with, I want to give you the floor.
No, I think we've covered it all. Honestly, I think that we see eye to eye on a lot of things, and I think the things that we don't see eye to eye on are the my optimism of maybe incorrectly placed optimism that things aren't going to evolve poorly. I think that my opinion is that at the end of the day, Fanatics and PSA are heavily incentivized in the long-term health and future of the hobby. And it's a difficult balance for them of maximizing the profit while also not milking it for all it's worth. That I know that we're going to talk to jumping to business here in a minute. That I think there are a lot of people in the card business that operate that way, that say, I'm just going to take, I'm going to lie about comps and say that this card is a $500 card when it's not, because I can get that sale and that customer then is going to move on and whatever. That's their problem. I made my money and that's no big deal. And they're not thinking about the long-term health of that, customer for them, the long-term involvement of that customer in the hobby, etc. And I hope, and again, I might be wrong. And if I am, if things devolve, I will say, man, my hope was incorrectly placed. But I still think that current state, I think the hobby is very, very healthy. It's not to say that there aren't things to be concerned about, because there definitely are. I just think that, as I said, I think in general, the concerns about PSA offers were overstated in a lot of places, I think, because I think as they currently stand, I think it's good for the hobbyist, it's bad for me, but I've got to adapt and adjust my business in the same way that any other business does as things change, as inflation happens, as supply chains dry up. Like it's the reality and the challenge of running a small business.
I respect that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think then maybe just the one thing that we'd ask, if the Ballcard Show could ask anything of you, Alex, and it really is, like, just genuinely, I really hope in your mind you could think through, like, what would be the things where I'm like, okay, that's too far. And I hope that people with a voice in the community think further ahead of that. Like, here's my non-negotiables. Here's the things that I won't ever be okay with. Or here's the things that we'll be like, all right, yellow flag, red flag on this one, right? So I just hope that there, and Gary and I need to have that in mind as well.
Yeah.
But I think that was some good perspective. So let's shift gears then. Let's talk about, so what? We're both dealers. This is a react, whether we think it's going to get worse or better or what. What does this mean for dealers? Repacks are front and center. You gave the example of going and walking shows, which, your business, are you exclusively selling on Whatnot? Do you set up at shows as well?
I set up occasionally, but that's more honestly to buy than it is to sell. And that's just because I have the social media following that I say, hey, I'm at the show, come sell me your cards.
Okay, that makes sense. So that perspective helps a lot because you're almost solely sourcing at shows. And you're saying the slab market there. So what kind of adapting should all three of us be doing if this is changing? I can say that Gary and I are no doubt running into issues where people were comfortable selling to us at 70, 75% for years. And in the last 6 months, it has become the point of tension. Like percentage. Some people don't even know what their card's worth, but they start with percentage. And I think that's something the repack market has introduced, right? So what types of things? So let's say that it's not just a season. 2-3 months from now, you're like, all right, it's hard to buy slabs. What are you going to do differently?
I am right now, I'm sourcing a lot of inventory on eBay, on Fanatics Collect, on, I haven't done a ton with Golden, but like I look at the big auction houses. One of the pieces of advice that I give people is, there are too many marketplaces out there right now. Like, and I think that can be, if you're a seller, detrimental, but as a buyer, you can take advantage of some of that. So, being able to buy, I spend all day eBay, ending soonest, PSA, and just seeing what kind of deals you're able to find. And, sometimes you find really good deals, and there are days where I'm like, wow, I bought like 50 slabs today. And then there are days where I'm like, I bought nothing. And that too, I anticipate will at some point get smaller and smaller, because as people recognize that there is different ways or better liquidity or better ways to sell their cards, like, you shouldn't be auctioning your cards yourself. Send them to a consignor. If you are going to do a 99-cent auction, send it to a consignor. They are going to get more eyes and you will get more money if you send it to a DC Sports. It's no question about it. And I still get good deals on DC stuff, but I definitely have to pay more when it's DC versus some random eBay account that has 43 feedback.
I'm definitely jealous of your ability to source on eBay, because as somebody who sets up at shows and doesn't just sell on an online platform, if I buy something on eBay
You set
and
the
I get a great deal on it, I now have to fight against that great deal that I got
It's a
when somebody
tug of
walks
war,
up to
yeah.
the table.
It is a huge challenge. I think that two things. One, I think that you need to be willing to say, and this is one of my things that I'm going to talk about again on this week's episode of the Hobby Handbook, is I think that comps are focused on too much in the hobby. All that comp was somebody was able to pay for that card when it sold. Like, if you wanted it at that price, you should have bought it at that price. Or if I wanted to sell that card at that price, I should have sold it at that price. I think that what I do all the time, because I have probably 95% of my inventory is moved on dollar auctions on whatnots, on whatnot streams.
Yeah.
The other little bit is, Otani Gold Wave. I'm not a maniac. I'm not starting that at $1. I get guys all the time, when does back wall run? I'm like, it doesn't. That's not happening. That's in the shop, and you can make me an offer, and we can work out a deal, and that's fine. And I'm happy to give you a good deal. But when I have guys that come in, like, great example, I just bought a Ronald Acuna Future So Bright out of Finest, really cool insert, red refractor out of 5. Mm-hmm. I got it for $47 on DC and a PSA 9. I'm like, that seems like a crazy good deal to me. That's going in my shop at $150 or best offer.
Yeah.
I know somebody's gonna come and they're gonna say, well, the last one did 47. Can you do 40? And I say, no, I'm last comp. I bought that card at 47 because I thought that I could make money on it. And either it goes into the dollar auctions where I am going to leave it up to the room and, let myself fall to the law of averages where I know that I'm probably going to do fine for how I source inventory, or I need to be willing to sit on it and say, I thought it was a good deal, and if I have to sit on it, I have to sit on it. And that's hard, especially if what you're doing is only shows where you only have showcase inventory, and like, if stuff gets stale, that's preventing you from putting other things into the case that's going to move. For me, my back wall stuff, I don't keep a ton of that inventory because it's not what I sell a ton of. And it's stuff that if I'm holding this Otani in 10 years, okay.
Yeah. You would get a kick out of sitting just behind and watching us at a show on a Saturday, because
I'm sure.
We both have very similar thought processes to that, but we also are the guys who are kind of known for having the really unique, interesting stuff that nobody else really wants to carry because they're bricks.
Yep.
They're affordable too. We're not doing that for the most part, $200 to $500. Like not big cards, but end user cards.
Yeah, stuff that doesn't sell very often that a collector is going to buy. It's not for the guy trying to buy it from me at 80% so he can sell it for 90%. And
But Alex, I think you bring up a really, really important point here as we think how this percentage squeeze that we're all feeling, whether it's PSA or whatever, is happening. Because the advantage you have with that built-out audience with live selling on an auction is you have 20 people looking over your table at the same card at the same time. So it's a very different conversation to source and vice versa. I don't think it would affect us that much on Whatnot, Gary. I really don't.
No, probably not.
We cost
Probably not on
average with our
Whatnot.
approach anyway, but it would be tough to do it there. So sourcing online, Gary, do you think there's things that you will need to do differently if the PSA repack and offers continues to grow and become popular and we see more resistance at? Like, we're fighting for 80% right now, Alex. That's kind of a lot of the times we're fighting to get to 80%.
maybe
We try
I
to tap out if we can.
Yeah, no, I always tap out there. My motto is very simple. There's always another deal.
There's
for
always
me-
more cards.
For me, I think one of the things, and this is getting into the weeds of the philosophy of this business, for years, in the great grand scheme of the existence of this hobby, we are in the 10% window of the current way of doing things. Up until very shortly before COVID, the norm for dealers was to pay 50%, maybe 60%. And to be perfectly frank, and I don't have a problem saying this because I say it to customers when they walk up to my table. If your card's worth less than $20, I'm paying you 50%. If you don't want to sell it at that, I totally get it. It's okay.
Yeah.
No worries. But your retail green Jackson dart that's going to be worth 30% less in 10 days than it is today, I'm not interested in paying up for. I do it by bands, but yeah, we're normally somewhere, depending on the value of the card, somewhere between 60 and 80%. And the 80% is reserved for when I can sell it before the end of the show for the most part. Or it's something awesome. Like I paid up on a Ken Griffey Jr. All Kings because it's a beautiful card.
Crazy cool card.
I think that they're going to hold value long term and continue to go up. And so I paid strong on that card. But in general, the thing that I try to tell people when other dealers ask us how we buy or how we do this or how we do that, the easiest part of this business, and this is going to sound very counterintuitive, but it isn't. The easiest part of this business is the selling.
It is harder to buy cards than it is to sell cards.
And you have to be a better salesperson to buy cards than you do to sell cards.
Yep.
You need to be able to communicate with people. You need to be able to honestly say, hey, I'm running a business here. When we buy for Whatnot inventory, when it walks up to our table, we went through this on the pod 3 or 4 weeks ago, like broke it down. Kind of like you do sometimes. Like when people bring stuff up to the table, I look at it and say, listen, I want to make sure we're on the same page. This is Whatnot inventory for us. I don't care what the comps are. That means nothing to me. I'm buying this stuff roughly knowing what it's going to do in our stream. We have a pretty
Purely
good
off
idea.
of vibes.
Yeah, and 100%. And I'm going to pay you based on the type of stuff you're bringing me. If you're bringing me 100 cards, I'm going to pay you somewhere between $1 and $5 a card, depending on the type of stuff it is. I don't care if there's 10 cards in there that comp at 50, because I'm also taking 10 cards at $5 that are 50 cents.
Yep.
Like, if that works for you, let's have a conversation. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. There's probably other guys in the room of 400 dealers that you can sell to. What's shocking is how many people will sell to us.
It's working, but I'm concerned, like looking forward, I'm concerned that at some point it won't. And
I think it will.
I think for me, Justin, why do you think it will, Alex?
I think that the amount of work that is required to move low-end inventory, most people are not willing to put in. The amount of time, and maybe
They have no idea, do they?
maybe
they have no
if
idea
there
how
is
much time it
the
takes.
streamlining of, listing on eBay that, eBay basically buys a Card Dealer Pro or Chronosio, and you can literally just take your phone, scan it, and it uploads everything. Maybe that day, but even then, the volume game of you get 40 orders that you have to pack up and ship out. Most
Jason
people
knows.
do not have the time, energy, or motivation to do that.
I tell people.
All of the cards that I buy, for the most part, I buy the exact same way that you do. Of basically what I say is, if it's worth more than $15-20, I'm going to comp it out. I'm going to pay you between 70 to 80%, depending on how good it is. Anything under $15-20, I'm going to pay you between $2 and $5 a card, depending on how good that inventory is. Yeah, there's going to be some stuff. I mean, I bought a lot at the show this past weekend that I got, some very nice stuff at $3 a card, but I paid him, I said, I knew that the stack of cheap stuff was good. I mean, good. Mm-hmm. I got that stuff at $3 a card, and I said, I'm confident there, so I'll just pay you 100% on all the other nice high-end stuff that you got. Those are my loss leaders. I'm fine to lose on those cards because it will average out. I think that the cheap market, the low-end market, one, leaves way more room for profit for the average person. And two, it's because it's not going to go away, because PSA is not going to start buying raw cards. Repackers don't put low-end, cheap raw cards into their boxes. They don't. The profit margin's not there. The time, it's too time intensive, and maybe that will change, and my business will go away if that's the case. But as is, I think that the low-end stuff is going to stay the same, because I think that it's too hard to move it at volume.
There doesn't exist a world where I do all the work and somebody else makes all the money. I tell people that all the time. If you want, Jason's really good at it. When somebody gets really pushy about it, he'll be like, hey, man, if you want, I can go introduce you to the promoter of the show. He can get you hooked up with a table next month.
Yep.
You can get up at 5 a.m. You can drive in. You can set your stuff out, sit here for 10 hours and argue with people all day, and then try to make some money.
pay for a table, buy the showcase, buy yourself lunch. It's absolutely agree.
Yeah. All right. I want to pause here because it sounds like when we start getting into the how-tos, we have very similar philosophies on the whatnot, sourcing, purchasing, and even at this point, we have been trying to grow. I'll just get in the weeds a little bit on our business end of it. We have been, we had really rapid growth first half of the year. We just launched this year, brought our community over from the podcast. We've quickly got to about like Gary, 6,500, 6,000, something like that.
Close to
followers.
7
We
now,
had a plateau like we have never seen. It was like months and months and months. And we've been trying to figure out things that will work, schedule things, changing things up. We finally were able to hit an average Sunday that we have been working towards for quite a while, right in that ballpark around that 12 to 15 range. For us, it meant trusting to pay up on a few bigger cards. So on your episode of the Hobby Handbook a couple weeks back, you were doing a consultation with somebody, and you were talking through whatnot traffic and the algorithm, and that seems like something that's very often gate-kept information. Like when people figure out something that's working, talk about it. If I want to learn how to improve YouTube efficiency, eBay, there's tons out there, but whatnot's a little more suppressed. You mentioned something you're doing with bookmarks, and I think it had a direct impact on our sales in the last week. Do you mind giving that nugget to our crowd? Because I think it's really, really helpful.
Yeah, of course. So at the end of the day, on Whatnot, I think what matters the most is that little push notification that goes out at the start of your stream. With my 24,000 followers, when I go live, I have 15, 20 people in my room. The moment the push notification goes out, it goes up to 100 plus. The people that get that push notification are either followers who have continuously engaged in your show. It's not really reliable, or those who have bookmarked your show. So getting people to pre-save, click that little bookmark button to say, hey, I want to know when this show happens, is super, super important. And the kind of like hack for that basically is doing giveaways, which is great because giveaways grow your follower account, which is important because that helps get you more of those push notifications. But it also, if you tie said giveaways to the number of bookmarks that you have, you say, I've got a cool $50 card that we're going to give away. If we can get to this number, it's a stretch goal, but if we make it, we'll give this away. Mm-hmm. You start to slowly build it up. And I'm not like looking at my Whatnot streams. What I generally will do is at the start of the month, we'll have a couple of shows where I just focus in big on it. And I say, okay, look, let's get us to 75 pre-saves. Let's get us to 100 pre-saves. So my show tomorrow has 230 pre-saves. Mm-hmm. The football stream on Thursday has 183, 193, 170. By the end of the month, you're closing in on 150, 200 pre-saves for me. And now that's reliable to get a big push notification going out, which helps bump your numbers of people in. And then if you're running a good show with good inventory, people are bidding, chat's moving, then the algorithm says, hey, wait a minute, something cool's happening here. It's probably worth sending people to this room because they got a lot of good stuff, and there's clearly something positive happening here that we should send more people there. It snowballs.
Yeah. I think that's the big thing we didn't realize is if you build out those shows far enough ahead, you're picking up where you left off every show. And so that was a tremendous help for us. So thank you for that. The other thing I want to say thank you for is that spreadsheet. I don't know if you still advertise this or not. You had a business tracker spreadsheet, and it was like, I am the last person to be responsible on the accounting end, which is so important, but I know it matters. So you just said, here's your sheet, run it. I don't know if it was the best $5 I spent on my business.
You can thank my wife
in
for
the last
that,
year and a
she's
half.
the one who built out the spreadsheet.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
She's the Excel whiz.
Alex, are we taking up time? We run this a little bit longer. I'm mindful. Okay.
No, totally good.
Gary, where you want to run? You want to run straight into the popper drop here? Or do you
Yeah, I think we've covered everything else.
Okay.
Let's have some fun. And you want me to introduce this segment, Jason?
Yeah, why don't you kick it off? I'll pull up the
All right.
list.
So
make sure. Go ahead. I ran over this with you, Alex, right? You just
Yeah.
get a pop or a drop, and then if you want to give a little bit of like a sentence or two
Context,
why,
yeah.
then cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we launched this segment back when the podcast was audio only. And we were audio only for a little over 4 years before we came to video this year, and we've carried it forward. It's been a very popular segment. It's called Pop or Drop. And it's not a you should go buy this person, or we think this is an investment. What it is do we think that they are priced appropriately right now for growth, or do we think that they're priced appropriately right now where it's time to get out? So a pop means I would be holding this guy if I have it, or stacking it if I feel strong about it. Or I think the market right now is about as good as it's going to get. It has nothing to do with player performance. It does nothing to do with whether we think that guy is going to be great again next year.
Yep.
It's all about where the market is in relation to what's going to happen. So that's pop or drop.
Great. Let's do it.
All right, I'll fire off the names, and then you guys let her rip, okay? All right, up first, Ellie De La Cruz.
I will say pop.
I'm in the same bucket as you. I think that the last half of last year tanked his market, and he's just got that it factor. And I don't
he played
think
well.
Yeah, the
I
second
know
half
power
was
didn't
rough.
show up in the same level, but he hit for a higher average. The Reds, are a team that can look at contending. I know the Dodgers, but baseball is a weird sport.
Going to break my heart as a Reds fan. You're going to say that stuff and get my hopes up, and
But
then we're going to
they
go
can.
Reds.
Terry Francona, they got a good team. The rotation's building. They have the pieces there, and I think his market dropped in a way that it shouldn't have.
Agreed.
Okay. Ride the roller coaster here. Ronald Acuna Jr. I know, right?
I'm a pop on Acuna just because the market is so low. I'm scared of the health, but God, he was so good when he came back this year.
He was. I will say pop as well, centered around, I think the Braves are going to be significantly better. I think that Acuna, you know what he is, you know what he can be. The injury risk exists, but he's kind of priced at a lowish enough point that there's not massive downside. And the Braves will be a better team next year.
Yep.
Nick Kurtz.
Drop.
All day. It's just not. What? How's it going to get higher?
He's a first baseman. Hobby doesn't like first baseman. He plays in Sacramento.
For the A's. He plays for the A's.
Which the A's have a lot of solid pieces, but it's the A's. They're not going to, drop.
Okay. Cal Raleigh. I tried to give us some thinkers here.
I think it has to be a drop.
See, there's where I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree. Tell me why you think he's a drop, and I'll tell you why I think he's a pop.
I don't see a world in which he repeats his offensive season this year or next year. I think he's still going to be very good. I think that he can be a 35-40 home run bat. I think that he will play elite defense, but defense doesn't matter to the Hobby. And if he's not in the MVP race, who is he? He's a guy.
He's a pop for me for two reasons. One, the moment that the postseason ended and people understood that there didn't exist a world where Aaron Judge wasn't going to win the MVP, his market already softened. So I think it's a little lower than it should be. Secondly, and this is the big one for me, Mariners fan, and you're a baseball guy and a baseball card guy. Mariners fans and Giants fans are two of the most rabid buyers of baseball cards on the planet. They have been dying for a guy like this since Griffey left town. They wanted it to be Julio, but Julio's terrible for the first 4 months of every season because he doesn't like cold weather. Raleigh's the guy, and they love him, and they're going to buy him. Giants fans still pay for Patrick Bailey. I just think that his market is a little softer than it should be, and I don't think he'll repeat what he did this year because it was so special, but I don't think there's a world where he's not a consistent 35 to 40 home run guy who plays platinum glove level defense as an all-star every year. He's going to get MVP votes.
Look at Buster Posey values, and I know he's retired, but Giants guy, I don't know that the Mariners have a large enough fan base to wholly drive market growth. I think
Fair enough.
I think his market will maintain. I don't think that he is going to be a half the price as it is today. But I think I don't have faith in him being MVP caliber, which I think he needs to be to be market relevant.
Fair enough.
We'll see.
All right, we'll see what happens with this. Let's go back a few years now. Barry Bonds. What's going to happen with pop or drop?
I think he's going to make the Hall. I think that he's in the, what is it called? There's some sort of like
the modern committee. It's the Veterans Committee
Yes.
for modern players. Yeah.
Yes, where I think he has a much higher likelihood of making it because it's got to be 15 guys who are voting on that.
Yeah.
It's a much smaller group that he has to kind of win over essentially. And if he makes the Hall of Fame, even with the asterisk, I mean, it's Barry Bonds statistics are ridiculous.
The greatest hitter
Ever.
of all time. It's not remotely close. He's a pop for me for all the same reasons. And even if he doesn't get into the Hall of Fame, just the fact that he is starting to make a concerted effort to soften his perception within the sports world, appearing on podcasts, trying to be a likable human, which he didn't have any interest in being when he was a player.
Like my guy Alex Rodriguez.
Yeah. Yeah, like trying to soften his image somewhat. I think that there is so much, and we saw it this year when Topps actually brought out the first licensed autos of his in 25 years.
Huge demand.
Massive demand. So yeah, I think he's a pop.
All right, let's just do a couple more here. Yamamoto.
Drop.
All day the drop. We saw something from that dude that we're never going to see again in a World Series, and it got the spike. It tripled his market in 2 weeks. It ain't staying there.
What a year to be a pitcher investor, you know?
His Topps Chrome Refractor Rookie PSA 10. It's a $160 card.
That's crazy.
Skeens doesn't do that.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I realize he has the
international
overseas
appeal,
market.
like that.
Yeah.
That matters. I'm not going to say that it doesn't, but there's next to no way that his stuff holds the value in the way that
It's
it
a
does.
$60 card by spring training.
I think it'll be more than that. I'm going to guess
think?
80 to 100.
Okay.
Does Scooball get the same response from both of you?
He's
I
such
actually
a
would say
pop.
pop on Scooball.
Long-term pop. Like buy his stuff. It's so cheap. I bought, and I realize it's unlicensed, but I bought a Mosaic pink fluorescent true rookie to 10 for like $60 a couple weeks ago. Like, his stuff is so cheap, and he's the best pitcher in I know, say what you will about Skeens, and I love Skeens. Skeens probably the most talented, but Scooball, until he gets dethroned, is the best pitcher in baseball. It's not really
And
that
he's going to
close.
get traded.
Yeah, I think he is too. They're saying all the right things, but I think he's probably going to a big market team.
And that will bob his value.
Yeah.
All right, last one. Trout.
Pop.
Yeah, long-term pop too, for the same reasons.
I think
So-
short and long term.
Yeah. Hey, go ahead, Alex.
He is I call his rookie card, which I've got the Diamond Anniversary, which is going nowhere.
Yep.
Nice.
That is, in my mind, the modern Mickey Mantle card. Because Trout is the modern Mantle in many ways. And I think that while he has struggled health-wise, his market is at a point where it's so low, it's not going to go any lower, realistically. Or if it does, it's going to be incremental. He puts together a healthy season and hits 45 home runs. He hits the 500 home run mark. He's a bona fide Hall of Famer. He has arguably the greatest peak of any player.
His jaws is insane. Like, it is it just talks about the cyclical nature of the hobby and the what have you done for me nature lately, nature of the business that we're all in.
Yep.
Go look at Mike Trout's jaws and then go look at Ohtani's jaws. That's all I would tell anybody to do. I'm with you. Mike Trout is the modern day Mickey Mantle. He had health issues, but if Mike Trout never steps foot on a baseball diamond again,
He's a Hall of
he is
Famer.
a first ballot lock, 99% vote Hall of Famer, as the single greatest player of the mid 2000s. Like, it's not even close. And if you're not buying, like 5 years ago, and obviously, the COVID peak was the COVID peak, but a PSA 10 base tops traded Trout rookie was what, $5,000, $5,500, and you can buy one for $900 now.
Yeah.
You should. You should.
All right, before we wrap up, Alex, just genuinely from Gary and I appreciate you welcoming the dialogue. I appreciate you making time to talk, and just even engaging as people take our little clips and do whatever they want with them on socials. But how can people connect with you? Because I do want to say this, the Ballcard Show community, our community is primarily focused on people that have some type of a business out of this. They're in that type of a grind, or people just getting introduced to the hobby, and we're kind of the glossary of podcasts, right? We'll just kind of walk them through it. But I think there's tremendous value in your content because of your perspective, your experience, and your willingness to be honest. And I think that those are, unfortunately, a lot of times more rare things to find in this space. So how could people connect with you? Where do you do your shows? What's the best way to get involved with the podcast? Give them the rundown, Alex.
Yeah, so I have the weekly podcast. It's a part of the Sports Cards Nonsense Network. So that's, Hobby Handbook is, you can find it anywhere you get podcasts. It's also on the Sports Cards Nonsense YouTube page. I've got my own YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Clever Cuban Cards everywhere. Always down to have conversations. Always, I will always keep it real. Won't always say that we agree, but that's fine. If we don't have to agree on everything, but I will always be honest and transparent. The business updates will continue no matter what people say, because I think it's important. I know so many people, whether it's using the hobby to fund the hobby or have the aspiration of one day doing what all three of us have done, which is turned it into the full-time gig. If you want to teach people how to do that, because I, as a former teacher, that's what I kind of love about the content side, is being able to teach about what I'm doing. You can't keep the stuff behind a paywall. You can't keep anything secret. Like, if I win and you win, we're all winning. We want the hobby to grow holistically, and it's a good thing if you're able to grow your business, because it ultimately is going to be good for everybody. So come check me out there. I appreciate you guys having me on. I love the debate, the conversation. I think that there's, in the world of social media, and I'm sure you guys see it all the time, there's a healthy way to have debate and conversation, and there's the people that just want to hate, and that's fine. I saw somebody talking about recently that it is, to some people, you are just the TV character. You are not a person, and that's fine. Whatever. But if you want to have a conversation, always happy to.
Awesome, Alex. We really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for being a part of the show today.
Of course. Thanks for having me on, guys.
We really appreciate Alex coming on and spending over an hour with us. We originally told him that it would be about 30 minutes, and he gave us a lot more time than that. Hopefully you guys got something out of that conversation too. I know that I did. Real quick, before we wrap up this week's episode, a few things to remind you about. First and foremost, remember to join us on Whatnot. We are no longer on Thursday nights, at least for now. We are Tuesdays at 6 p.m. and Sunday afternoons at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Come and hang out with us. Cool cards, good times, lots of giveaways. We will be at a few shows here leading up to Christmas. Tomorrow, from the day this episode drops, I will be in Chillicothe, Ohio at the Christopher Conference Center. And then the following weekend, Jason and I will both be in Auburn, Indiana, just north of Fort Wayne at the In the Fort Card Show that B Sports does. That's the same promotion group that does Grove City Card Fest and the Shipshewana Card Fest. It will be a really good time. If you are within a couple hours of that, it's probably a really good trip to make. Leading up to Christmas, we will be at Xenia the following week, and then finishing up the last show before the end of the year, we'll be at Eastgate Mall in Cincinnati, Ohio. So we hope to see you guys out there. Come say hey, shake our hand, tell us you love us, tell us you hate us, tell us you don't care about us at all, sell us your cards. Jason, is there anything else you have for us?
I do.
Fire away.
This has been the Ballcard Show, the sports podcast.
For the sports collector.
Bye now.
Peace.